problem that a lot of us have with the referees is it's either very physical and they're calling everything or they're missing calls.
WNBA just made a shocking move, suspending referees after repeatedly turning a blind eye to blatant fouls against Caitlin Clark.
So there is some more footage that had surfaced of people pretty much trying to dissect this whole put-y'all situation.
That's right. The same officials who stood by while she was tripped, shoved, and poked are now being quietly benched. After months of viral clips, fan outrage, and growing pressure, the league finally cracked. And honestly, it was long overdue.
We know that this has been the conversation in regards to Caitlin Clark's style of play for quite some time. A lot of people want to say she is thin that forearm.
This has been building for over a year, but no one expected the WNBA to actually hold its refs accountable until now.
The refs did not have control over the players. They did not have control over the game for pretty much the entire game. The game was chippy from the jump.
The league didn't just act, they admitted it. Their officials lost control of a game where Clark was poked in the eye, knocked to the ground, and still hit with a technical.
I think this is one of those things where it might be a turning point, and I think this could be a little bit of a weird one.
Now, finally, the consequences are starting to land. Let's be real. This didn't start with one bad game. The pattern has been obvious from the moment Caitlin Clark entered the league. Think back to June 2024. Kennedy Carter blatantly shoves her to the ground.
There were people at the game that have told me that this happened and they saw it.
And how do the refs respond? They call it a common foul. No flagrant, no ejection, no accountability, just business as usual.
There's some type of agenda going on with the Indiana Fever coaching staff. To me, it looked like they're trying to sabotage Caitlin Clark or maybe mold her into the player that they want her to be.
That season alone, Clark was on the receiving end of 5 flagrant fouls, 4 of them courtesy of the Chicago Sky. And yet, not a single referee was disciplined, not even close. That's not just poor officiating, that's willful neglect. Fans weren't blind. They saw exactly what was going on and called it what it was: prison ball. A brutal, overly physical style of play that felt more like a hazing ritual than professional basketball.
Yes, you have somebody in Caitlin Clark who became the face of the league the first year that she was in the WNBA. She put up crazy numbers last season, and even in this season, where she has struggled more games than she has balled out, she is still putting up wild numbers.
Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark kept showing up, hitting logo threes, and single-handedly dragging the Fever into relevance, while the refs acted like blowing the whistle was against league policy. And the WNBA? Silence. No statements, no accountability, just empty press releases filled with vague lines like, "We're reviewing the situation," and a whole lot of moving forward. Then came the breaking point, June 17th, 2025. Fever versus Connecticut Sun. Clark gets poked in the eye, stumbles trying to regain her footing, and before she can even focus, she's shoved to the floor. The whole thing captured in crystal clear HD from multiple angles, and somehow, she's the one slapped with a technical foul.
Most of the world was fed up with everything that was going on the court. They're fed up with the refs. They're fed up with the physicality getting to a point where players can get injured. And a lot of people were like, you know what? Finally, there's an enforcer on the court.
The crowd was stunned. Analysts were speechless. Fans went nuclear. It was so blatant, so ridiculous, the WNBA couldn't ignore it anymore. So they finally spoke up, admitting word for word that the referees had lost control of the game.
The Indiana Fever organization, to me, is looking like they're using Caitlin Clark for name, image, and likeness to somewhat build up their brand as a whole.
But then, nothing. The game passed, Clark moved on, the season kept rolling, and still, the league stayed silent. No suspensions, no accountability, just more of the same. Until about a month later, when a detailed expert breakdown dropped and blew the whole thing wide open.
Put these TikToks together, put these videos together, kind of, breaking down everything that has happened with the WNBA referees, because we have another game and we have another situation where WNBA referees failed to make the right calls against Caitlin Clark and the Fever.
He dissected the footage frame by frame, proving Clark wasn't flopping, wasn't exaggerating, and definitely wasn't pushing off. She was being tripped, clear as day. And the officials? They ignored it. Once that breakdown started making the rounds, the internet exploded. Fans, analysts, even former players were all asking the same thing. How has the league still done nothing? Suddenly, the WNBA couldn't stay in the shadows. The noise was deafening, the pressure undeniable, and the receipts stacked high. That's when it happened, quietly, with no press release, no big announcement. The league finally acted.
I feel like she should have been voted by the players differently. And I'm honestly not going to harp on this too long because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Referees were suspended, not publicly announced, not splashed across headlines, but quietly confirmed by sources. The very same officials at the center of multiple Clark controversies were benched, reassigned, and pulled from marquee matchups. Not out of a sudden urge to protect her, but because the pressure became impossible to ignore. Fans, media, and the entire basketball world forced their hand. Because when your league's biggest star is getting bullied in front of a national audience and you look the other way, it's not just a PR nightmare, it's a business liability. And for once, the WNBA understood. Pretending Caitlin Clark didn't matter was no longer an option. But it wasn't just about the refs anymore. Experts started calling out the Indiana Fever coaching staff, accusing them of either trying to sabotage Caitlin Clark, or worse, reshape her into a watered-down version of herself, all while cashing in on her name, image, and likeness to move jerseys and grow the brand. And to be clear, they weren't alone in saying it. Caitlin Clark is the face of the WNBA right now. She's packing arenas, driving merchandise sales, and breaking viewership records. But somehow, she was one technical foul away from suspension. Not for attitude, but for standing up for herself while officials kept penalizing her. The pressure reached a breaking point, and now, finally, referees have been suspended. No public statement yet, but the leaks are out. Multiple insiders have confirmed it. The league is retraining officials and reevaluating how they call freedom of movement. Some are already calling it the Clark Rule. The WNBA was at a crossroads. Keep shielding inconsistent refs, or protect the player keeping their league in the spotlight. And for once, they made the right move. But now comes the real test. Will it stick? Let's be brutally honest. The WNBA didn't make a brave decision. They had no choice. The pressure wasn't just intense, it was volcanic. Fans weren't just upset, they were in full-on revolt. Social media was a war zone. Tweets flying like daggers, comment sections in flames, and sponsors watching with folded arms and half-closed checkbooks. The message couldn't have been clearer. Protect Caitlin Clark or watch the whole thing go up in smoke. And let's not pretend the Indiana Fever are blameless either. They're more than happy to plaster her face on promos and sell her jersey to the masses. But where's the protection? That's the part that stings, because it's starting to feel real. Caitlin Clark is the face of the league, whether they like it or not. She's filling arenas, smashing records, and putting the WNBA in headlines and on late-night monologues. And yet, on the court, she's being treated like an afterthought, bullied by defenders while her coaching staff draws up plays that seem designed to keep her quiet. It's like buying a Ferrari and never shifting out of first gear. And that eye poke? That wasn't even the first shady moment. Rewind to May 2025. Indiana versus the New York Liberty. Final seconds. Game on the line. Clark drives, takes a clear foul from Natasha Cloud. Coach Stephanie White couldn't stay quiet. She called it egregious and lit up the officials' postgame. And the league? They admitted the mistake. But once again, no referee was held accountable. Just another vague statement, another shrug, and another game where Clark had to fight through it alone. And it gets worse. These aren't random moments. They're part of a clear pattern. The same referees, the same faces, keep showing up in Caitlin Clark controversies. That's not coincidence. That's a trend. And now, some fans are starting to ask the uncomfortable question. Is there a blacklist? Are there refs deliberately refusing to give her calls, out of bias, resentment, or some twisted sense of earning it? Because honestly, it's starting to feel that way. Inside the Fever locker room, the tension is rising. Sophie Cunningham didn't sugarcoat it. Whatever offense we were running before, we need to just give the ball to Caitlin. That's not just frustration, that's a warning. Sophie's been around long enough to know when something's off, and right now she sees an offense designed to do everything but run through the one player pulling in thousands of new fans every single night. So now, it's not just about the refs, not just the missed calls or the tripping incidents. There's a bigger problem brewing, an internal resistance, whether intentional or just incompetence, to limiting Caitlin's role. The world sees her as the centerpiece, but the league, even her own team, they're out here playing keep away. But here's the twist. Clark's still cooking, still dropping numbers, still packing arenas. So the WNBA finally blinked. They suspended refs. Quietly, yes, but the message was crystal clear. Protect your stars or risk losing everything. Because now every play is under the microscope. Every shove, every missed whistle, every leg left in her path. The refs are sweating. The coaches are scrambling. But Caitlin Clark? she's just getting started. Now, let's talk about the real reason the WNBA finally got off the fence and took action. And no, it wasn't some sudden burst of conscience. It was money, cold, hard business pressure, because for a moment there, the league looked like it was about to fumble the biggest bag in its history. And that bag's name? Caitlin Clark. Let's be honest, everything right now is riding on her star power. Ticket sales are exploding, merch is flying off shelves, TV ratings, best they've been in years. This isn't just casual interest. This is full-on investment. Fans are packing arenas in record numbers, wearing number 22 jerseys. Little girls are lining up for autographs, and national networks are airing Indiana Fever games like they're Game 7 of the finals. That's not just hype. That's Clark. But while fans were showing love, the league let her get body slammed and still called for fouls against her. And people noticed. Not just hardcore WNBA fans, but everyone. Sports media, casual viewers, even folks who couldn't tell a flagrant from a free throw started asking the same thing. Why is the WNBA letting its biggest star get manhandled on national TV? And that's when the whispers turned into warning shots. Sponsors weren't just watching, they were emailing. TV execs started asking questions, and behind the scenes, things got serious. According to insiders, some companies quietly made it clear if Clark got seriously injured because of the league's negligence, they might pull entire partnerships. As one source reportedly put it, you let her get hurt, you lose the golden goose. At the same time all this was brewing, Clark was inching dangerously close to an automatic suspension. She'd already picked up 5 technical fouls in 2025, and under league rules, one more would have forced her to sit. Not because she was reckless or out of control, but because she kept getting hit with nonsense calls while defending herself. It was absurd. The most marketable star in the league was one tech away from the bench. That's when the WNBA front office started sweating. And honestly, they should have. Fans weren't just frustrated, they were done playing nice. So what did the league do? Something no one saw coming. They finally acted. Not with press conferences or flashy statements, but quietly, behind the scenes. Multiple sources confirmed that several referees involved in the most blatant Clark no calls were quietly suspended, benched, and possibly even reassigned from high-profile games going forward. And here's the kicker. This is unprecedented. For the first time in WNBA history, officials were disciplined not just for general poor performance, but specifically for how they treated one player, Caitlin Clark. That's historic, whether the league announces it or not. Sources say the league has launched emergency referee retraining sessions with a new emphasis on freedom of movement standards. Translation: stop turning games into wrestling matches. They're also revisiting flagrant foul rules, reminding refs that if a player is shoved, tripped, or poked, it needs to be called, especially when that player is the face of your entire league. So yes, the WNBA finally took action. But let's be clear, it wasn't out of principle, it was out of necessity. And now, every whistle is under a spotlight. Every trip, bump, and missed call is going viral within minutes. The refs know it. The coaches know it. And Caitlin Clark? She's still doing what she's always done, balling out, breaking records, and making the entire league nervous. Because now, for the first time, she's not fighting alone. The league blinked. And the fans? They're watching closer than ever.